The most dangerous moment isn't the breakup, it's their return, because a breakup is obvious pain. You can see it, you can name it, you can grieve it, and you can start rebuilding your life around a clear reality. But when an avoidant returns, reality gets blurry. Your nervous system lights up, hope wakes up, memories start editing themselves. And the reason it's so dangerous is because they rarely return when you're at your strongest. They return when you're vulnerable, when you're tired, when you're lonely, when you've almost healed enough to stop thinking about them, when you've finally started to detach, and that is exactly when your boundaries are most at risk. An avoidant return is not automatically a love story. It's a test. A test of whether you'll give them access again without evidence of change. A test of whether you've truly outgrown the old dynamic or whether you still confuse contact with commitment. A test of whether your standards are real or emotional. And most people fail this test not because they're weak, but because their body reacts before their mind does. Your body remembers the addiction of the push-pull. Your body remembers the relief of their warmth after days of cold. Your body remembers the chemical hit of the back, and that hit can overpower logic in seconds. That's why this moment matters more than any speech, any apology, any explanation you ever wanted from them. Because when they return, they're stepping into the exact doorway they used to use to control the dynamic. They already know what worked before. They know what kind of message opens you. They know what kind of softness makes you forget. They know what kind of nostalgia makes you melt. They know which version of you they can trigger, the version that wants to be chosen so badly that you'll accept half, choosing as long as it feels like something. And here's the brutal truth. The avoidant doesn't always return because they've grown. Sometimes they return because they're lonely. Sometimes they return because their ego is bruised. Sometimes they return because they sensed you moving on and it triggered fear. Sometimes they return because they miss the comfort of your presence without missing the responsibility of loving you well. And that's why it's dangerous, because the return can look like love, it can feel like love, it can even include emotional words, but it can still be the same pattern trying to restart. Most avoidants return softly, not with full accountability, but with a message that creates emotional ambiguity. Hey, how are you? I was thinking about you. That ambiguity is strategic, whether they realize it or not, because ambiguity keeps them safe. It lets them test the waters without committing to the outcome. If you respond warmly, they get access. If you respond coldly, they can retreat and tell themselves they tried. If you don't respond, they can say you're the one who shut the door. Ambiguity protects their ego and gives them control, and control is what avoidants crave when intimacy feels risky. Now think about where you are in your healing when they return. Usually you're not in the early heartbreak anymore. You've already cried. You've already replayed the arguments. You've already blamed yourself and then started forgiving yourself. You've started rebuilding your routine. You've had days where you didn't think about them. You've started feeling proud again. And then, just as your nervous system is starting to settle, they return. That return reactivates old pathways. It's like someone reopened a wound that was finally closing. And the pain isn't just missing them. The pain is the war inside you. The part of you that wants to run back to the familiar comfort, and the part of you that knows the familiar comfort came with a price. This is why their return is the most dangerous moment, because it's the moment you're most likely to betray yourself. You don't betray yourself by loving. You betray yourself by abandoning your standards. You betray yourself by rushing back into intimacy without repair. You betray yourself by treating a message as proof of change. You betray yourself by accepting the same emotional terms again because you're hungry for the connection. And the avoidant dynamic thrives on your hunger. Hunger makes you accept crumbs. Hunger makes you overlook inconsistency. Hunger makes you settle for almost. So your job in this moment is to stop romanticizing the return and start reading it correctly. A return is a request for access. That's what it is. It's not automatically a request for rebuilding. It's not automatically a request for commitment. It's not automatically a request for a healthy relationship. It's a request for access. And access is exactly what you need to protect until you see evidence. Because the wrong move is to give full access just because they knocked. The wrong move is to let your emotions decide faster than your standards. The wrong move is to forget that the same person who is back is also the person who left. And leaving wasn't just an event, it was a pattern of coping. And here's the part that changes the entire video for your audience. You don't need to punish them to protect yourself. You don't need to attack them. You don't need to play games. You simply need to slow down and become intentional. The return is the test of your maturity. It's the test of whether you can hold your boundary even when your heart is excited. It's the test of whether you can say, "Contact is not enough. I need change." Because the moment you can do that, you stop being controlled by their timing. This keynote is the hook because it flips the entire story. It tells your viewers the danger isn't losing them. The danger is taking them back too easily. The danger isn't the heartbreak. The danger is the reset. The danger is allowing your nervous system to confuse familiarity with safety. So when they return, treat it like a test. Not a test to fail them, a test to protect you. And if they can't meet your standards at the door, they don't get to enter your life again. Their return usually isn't mature. And that's why so many people get trapped again, because they mistake contact for change. A mature return looks like responsibility. It looks like clarity. It looks like repair. But an avoidant return often looks like softness without structure, a casual message, a vague check in a hint of nostalgia, an emotional breadcrumb that reopens your heart without addressing what broke it. And if you don't understand this, you'll fall for the same pattern with a fresh layer of hope, because your body hears, they're back, and your nervous system translates that into, we're safe again. But safety isn't a message. Safety is behavior over time. An avoidant's biggest comfort tool is ambiguity. Ambiguity lets them stay connected without being accountable. Ambiguity lets them test you without risking rejection. Ambiguity lets them keep one foot in and one foot out while still getting emotional access. So when they return, they often return in a way that protects their ego first. They don't want to come in and say, I was wrong and I hurt you, because that would mean facing shame. They don't want to come in and say, I want to rebuild and here's what I'm willing to do, because that would mean making a promise they might not be able to keep. They don't want to come in and say, I'm scared, because that would mean vulnerability. So instead, they come in with something that feels light. Hey, how have you been? I was thinking about you. I hope you're doing okay. On the surface, it looks harmless. Underneath, it's a strategy to regain access while keeping emotional risk low. And here's what makes that message so dangerous for you. It triggers the relationship trance. The trance is when your brain starts rewriting the past in real time. You remember the highs more than the lows. You remember the chemistry more than the confusion. You remember the way they looked at you more than the way they disappeared. You start thinking, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe they've changed. Maybe this is the moment. And your nervous system, starving for closure, wants to believe it because believing it gives you immediate relief. Relief is addictive. The return gives you relief, and your brain tries to protect that relief by moving too fast. But a casual return is not a mature return. A mature return doesn't hide behind casualness. A mature return is direct and accountable. It names the pattern. It acknowledges impact. It offers a plan. It respects your pace. It doesn't act entitled to your access. It doesn't demand you move on quickly. It doesn't try to restart intimacy like the break never happened. It says, I understand I hurt you. I understand why you don't trust me, and I'm willing to do the work to rebuild slowly. That's maturity. An avoidant return, in contrast, often begins with testing, because testing gives them information. They want to know, are you still soft? Are you still waiting? Are you still emotionally attached? Will you respond fast? Will you respond warmly? Will you open the door with one small knock? And this is the part that people miss. The first message is rarely about you. It's about their nervous system. It's about relieving their discomfort. It's about checking whether they still have a place in your life. It's about restoring a sense of influence. Influence makes them feel safe. So they come in with something that can be denied if it fails. If you respond warmly, they can keep going. If you respond cautiously, they can say, I was just saying hi. If you ask for accountability, they can say, why are you making it a big deal? If you don't respond at all, they can retreat and tell themselves they tried. That's what ambiguity does. It protects them from vulnerability. It keeps them in control. And control is the currency of avoidance. Now, this doesn't mean every avoidant is malicious. Many are not. Many are genuinely conflicted. They miss you, but they fear the responsibility of loving you well. They crave connection, but they fear being seen. They want warmth, but they fear expectations. So they return in the safest way possible, a small reach, a casual tap, a low-risk message. And your job is not to punish them for that. Your job is to recognize what it is, a doorway test, not a full rebuild. Because the danger is that you will treat the doorway test like a reunion. You will give them intimacy quickly. You will give them emotional access quickly. You will start explaining your feelings again. You will start softening again. You will start planning again. And you will do this before there is any evidence that the pattern is different. Then, once the avoidant feels safe again, once the emotional wave passes, once the risk of losing you decreases, the old behavior can return. Distance, silence, vagueness, pulling away after intimacy. And now you are hurt again, but worse. Because you feel like you lost progress, like you betrayed your own healing. So here's the internal shift you must make when they return casually. You stop asking, "What does this message mean?" And you start asking, "What is this message offering?" Because meaning is emotional. Offering is practical. Hey offers contact, not commitment. A nostalgic memory offers warmth, not repair. A late night miss you offers relief, not consistency. If you treat these offers as if they are commitment, you will overinvest. If you treat them as what they are, a test of access, you can respond wisely. Wisdom looks like calm boundaries. Wisdom looks like slow pace. Wisdom looks like refusing to skip accountability. Wisdom looks like not getting pulled back into intensity. And the moment you do that, you change the whole game, because now they can't restart the old dynamic with one casual message. Now, if they want you, they have to show up with maturity. And that is exactly what protects you while still giving real growth a chance to prove itself. The one question that cuts through everything is, what's different now? Because that question does something most people are too scared to do in the moment an avoidant returns. It forces reality. It forces the conversation out of emotion and into structure. It forces them out of nostalgia and into accountability. It forces the dynamic out of fantasy and into proof. And the reason this question is so powerful is because it doesn't attack them. It doesn't beg them, and it doesn't reward them either. It simply demands clarity. And clarity is the one thing avoidant patterns hate, because clarity removes the hiding place called ambiguity. When an avoidant returns, your nervous system wants relief, not truth. Relief feels like, "They're back, I'm safe." Truth feels like, "They're back, but are they different?" And truth is uncomfortable because it risks disappointment. So most people skip truth and sprint into relief. They start chatting. They soften. They flirt. They reopen emotionally. They treat the return like a reunion. And then weeks later, when the avoidant pulls away again, they realize we never addressed the pattern, we only addressed the loneliness. That's why what's different now matters. It slows the moment down. It protects you from your own hunger. This question also flips the power dynamic. The old power dynamic was you seeking and them deciding. You were the one asking for clarity, asking for reassurance, asking for consistency, and they were the one controlling the pace with silence and distance. But what's different now removes the chase energy. It doesn't sound like you're begging. It sounds like you're evaluating. And evaluation is adult energy. Evaluation says, "I'm not assuming, I'm observing. I'm not here to be convinced by words. I'm here to see whether behavior has changed." And when an avoidant feels evaluated, they can't rely on charm alone. They can't rely on nostalgia alone. They can't rely on a casual hey alone. They have to show something real. Now here's what makes this question even sharper. It forces them to reveal their real motive for returning. Because there are only a few reasons people return. They return because they are lonely. They return because they miss your comfort. They return because their ego is bruised. They return because they sensed you moving on. They return because they want access again. Or, the rare one that actually matters, they return because they grew and they want to rebuild with intention. What's different now exposes which one it is. If their answer is vague, emotional, or defensive, it usually means the return is about relief, not repair. If their answer is specific, accountable, and practical, it may mean something actually changed. So what are you listening for? You're listening for ownership. Ownership sounds like, "I see how I hurt you. I know I disappeared. I know I shut down. I avoided hard conversations. I handled closeness poorly." That's step one. Then you listen for change strategy. Change strategy sounds like, "I've been in therapy. I've been working on my avoidance. I've realized my patterns. Here's what I will do when I feel overwhelmed. Here's how I will communicate instead of disappearing. Here's what consistency looks like." That's step two. Then you listen for respect of your pace. Respect sounds like, "I know trust will take time. I'm not expecting you to jump back in. I'm willing to rebuild slowly. I'll show you through actions." That's step three. And when those three show up together, you're not dealing with a casual return, you're dealing with a potential rebuild. But most avoidants, when they're not ready, will react to this question with one of four dodges. They'll dodge with emotion. "I just miss you." They'll dodge with pressure. "Can't we just talk?" They'll dodge with blame. "You're making it complicated." Or they'll dodge with vagueness. "I don't know, I've been thinking." And here's what you have to understand. These answers are not answers. They're attempts to pull you back into the old dynamic, where you do the emotional labor and they keep the control. Because if you accept, "I miss you," as proof, you will open the door without repair. If you accept, "Can we just talk?" as a reunion, you will drift back into intimacy without structure. If you accept, "You're making it complicated," you will shrink your standards to keep the connection. And that's exactly how you lose yourself again. So the question, what's different now, is not meant to be dramatic. It's meant to be clean. You ask it calmly, once, and you wait. You don't fill the silence. You don't soften it for them. You don't rescue them from discomfort. You let them answer. Because their ability to answer this question is part of the proof. A person who has grown can handle adult questions. A person who hasn't grown will try to avoid them. And this is what makes this keynote so engaging for your video, because it gives the viewer something they can use immediately. It takes all their emotional confusion and turns it into one practical tool. It turns "why are they back" into "what are they offering?" It turns "I miss them" into "are they different?" It turns "should I respond?" into "do they have a plan?" And the moment your audience realizes they don't have to get pulled into the emotional wave, they can stay steady, ask one powerful question, and watch what happens. They feel empowered. Because the truth is, the avoidance return is only dangerous when you treat it like a romance. When you treat it like an evaluation, it becomes your protection. The trap they use to pull you back in is not always a big lie. It's a small dodge, a flip, a foggy answer that sounds emotional enough to soften you but vague enough to avoid accountability. And it works because it targets the exact part of you that wants peace more than truth. It targets the part of you that's tired of conflict, tired of overthinking, tired of missing them, and willing to accept something just to stop the discomfort. That's why this keynote matters. Because if you can recognize the trap in real time, you won't mistake manipulation, avoidance, or confusion for love. The first trap is vagueness. I don't know. I just felt like reaching out. I've been thinking about you. I miss you. These phrases sound sweet, but they are not a plan. They are not repair. They are not evidence of change. They're emotional smoke. They give you a feeling without giving you structure. And the reason avoidants love vagueness is because vagueness keeps them safe. It lets them touch the connection without stepping into responsibility. It gives them plausible deniability. If you respond warmly, they get access. If you respond cautiously, they can retreat and say, "I was just checking in." Vagueness is low risk and high reward, and when you've been starving for connection, vague warmth can feel like a feast. The second trap is dodging accountability by rushing past the past. Can we just talk? Let's not make this a big thing. Why do we have to bring up old stuff? I don't want to argue. On the surface, it sounds like peace, but often it's avoidance. It's an attempt to restart the relationship without addressing the pattern that broke it. And if you accept that you're not choosing peace, you're choosing a reset. A reset feels good short term, but it guarantees you'll repeat the same pain long term because nothing was repaired. A mature person understands that talking about the past isn't punishment, it's prevention. It's how you stop the cycle. Someone who refuses to address the past is usually protecting their comfort, not your future. The third trap is flipping it on you. This one is dangerous because it hits your empathy. You're making it complicated. Why are you so negative? You always ruin things. I'm trying and you're pushing me away. This is the guilt flip. It's designed to make you feel like your standards are the problem. It's designed to make you shrink your needs so they can stay comfortable. It's designed to turn your boundary into an attack. And if you're a loving person, you'll start questioning yourself. Maybe I am asking for too much. Maybe I should be softer. Maybe I'm being harsh. And that self-doubt is exactly what reopens the door. The avoidant doesn't have to change if they can get you to lower the standard. The fourth trap is the partial apology. I'm sorry if you felt hurt. I didn't mean to. I was going through a lot. These statements can be true, but they are incomplete. A real apology names behavior, names impact, and offers a new plan. A partial apology often tries to close the conversation without truly opening responsibility. It's not, "I shut down and disappeared and I see how that hurt you." It's, "I'm sorry you took it that way." That keeps the blame floating in the air. And unwound patterns repeat. The fifth trap is the emotional hook, nostalgia, intimacy, and chemistry too soon. They bring up memories, they send old photos, they flirt. They become suddenly sweet. They want late-night talks. They want that familiar closeness back quickly. And your body responds because your body remembers them. Your body remembers the highs, your body wants the relief. But chemistry is not proof of change. Chemistry is not repair. Chemistry is not a plan. Chemistry is a feeling, and feelings without structure are how you get trapped again. If you give intimacy before accountability, you reward the return without requiring the rebuild. The sixth trap is the disappearing act after you soften. This is the cruelest part of the cycle. They come back, you open, you hope, you talk, you reconnect. And then when they feel safe again, they fade. They take what they needed, reassurance, validation, access, and then their fear of closeness returns, so they regulate by pulling away. And because you already reopened your heart, the second withdrawal hurts worse than the first. This is why you cannot let the return bypass your standards. Standards are not walls, they are filters. They keep your heart from being reopened by someone who hasn't earned the key. So how do you beat the trap? You don't beat it with aggression. You beat it with calm clarity. You don't argue with vagueness. You ask for specifics. You don't defend your boundary. You hold it. You don't rush into intimacy. You slow the pace. You don't accept guilt flips. You return to the point. What's different now? You don't reward a partial apology. You require ownership and a plan. You don't let nostalgia override reality. You watch behavior over time. Because the avoidant's greatest weapon is not coldness, it's ambiguity. And your greatest protection is not anger, it's standards. The moment you can recognize these traps, you stop being pulled by the emotional wave of their return, and you start leading with self-respect. The right rejection script is calm, clean, and short, because the longer you talk, the more chances the avoidant has to pull you back into emotion instead of accountability. Most people think they need the perfect paragraph, the perfect explanation, the perfect speech that finally makes the avoidant understand. But avoidants don't change because you explain better. They change when reality becomes unavoidable. And reality becomes unavoidable when your standards are clear, your energy is steady, and you stop rewarding vague contact with emotional access. So the right rejection is not rejection of the human being, it's rejection of the old dynamic. It's you saying, I'm not going back to uncertainty. It's you saying, I'm not restarting intimacy without repair. It's you saying, access to me is earned through consistent behavior. And you deliver that message without anger, because anger gives them something to react to, blame, and escape from. Calm gives them nowhere to hide. Here's the structure of the right script. It has 3 parts: openness, boundary, requirement. Openness means you don't slam the door with cruelty. You say, I'm open to a real conversation. That signals maturity. Boundary means you name the line, but I'm not going back into the old dynamic. Requirement means you make it practical. If you want to rebuild, tell me what's changed and what you'll do differently. That's it. 3 sentences, clean, adult, no emotional bargaining. Why does this work so well? Because it removes the gray zone. Avoidants love the gray zone. The gray zone is where they can hover, test, and keep access without committing. The gray zone is where you become an option while still emotionally investing. The script collapses the gray zone into a simple choice: rebuild intentionally with accountability, or don't come in. And when you remove the gray zone, you remove their ability to keep you emotionally attached while staying safe from responsibility. Now, what does repair, consistency, and clarity actually mean in a real conversation? Repair means they acknowledge what happened without minimizing. They don't say, sorry if you felt hurt. They say, I disappeared. I shut down. I left you confused. I see how that affected you. Repair includes impact, not just intention. It also includes a plan. When I feel overwhelmed now, I will communicate. I will not vanish. I will give a time frame. I will come back to the conversation. If they can't name a plan, they are not repairing, they are soothing themselves. Consistency means you do not rush. You do not treat one good conversation as proof. You do not hand them full access because they're emotional today. Consistency is measured across time and across triggers. The real test is what happens when they're stressed, when intimacy rises, when conflict shows up, when you set a boundary, when you say no, when you ask for clarity. A consistent person stays present through those moments. An avoidant who is only returning for relief will start fading again when they feel safe. So your script must include your pace. I'm willing to talk, but I'm moving slowly. Trust will be rebuilt through actions. This protects you from being pulled into chemistry. Clarity means no vague hovering. Clarity means you do not accept, I miss you. As a relationship offer, you ask, what are you looking for? What are you offering? Are you willing to rebuild intentionally? Clarity means the conversation is not about feelings alone, it's about intentions and behavior. And if they avoid clarity, if they keep things foggy, that fog is the answer. Because someone who truly wants to rebuild will welcome clarity, even if it's uncomfortable. The biggest reason the script must be short is because long explanations invite negotiation. Negotiation is where you lose. You start defending your boundary, and once you defend it, you're emotionally engaged again. You start arguing about the past, and now the avoidant can say, you're being negative, and you're back in the role of proving you're reasonable. You start expressing pain, and they can either shut down or turn it into guilt, and you're back in the loop. A short script prevents all of that. It keeps you in the role of evaluator, not chaser. And here's the hard part. You must be prepared to follow through. The script is not powerful if it's only words. If they respond with vagueness and you still soften, the avoidant learns, standards are negotiable. If they dodge accountability and you still offer intimacy, they learn, I can return without repair. So the real power is your follow-through. If they can't meet the requirements, you end it cleanly, I understand, I wish you well. And then you stop talking. No arguing, no checking in, no late-night emotional messages, because every extra message is a rope back into the old dynamic. This is why the right rejection is so rare. It demands emotional discipline. It demands that you tolerate the discomfort of not getting immediate reassurance. It demands that you let the silence do the work. And when you can do that, something incredible happens. You stop needing them to choose you for you to feel chosen. You choose yourself first. And that choice is what makes the old pattern impossible to restart. The deepest regret they feel doesn't come from you insulting them, blocking them dramatically, or trying to make them jealous. The deepest regret comes from calm closure, because calm closure is the one thing an avoidant can't easily turn into a story that protects their ego. If you scream, they can call you crazy and run. If you beg, they can feel powerful and return later. If you play games, they can stay in control and keep you in the gray zone. But if you end it calmly, cleanly, and you stop leaving doors open, they are forced to face something they spend their whole lives avoiding: consequence without drama. Calm closure is when you refuse to fight for someone who refuses to show up. It's when you stop trying to convince them of your worth. It's when you stop giving emotional speeches that give them attention without accountability. It's when your energy becomes final, not bitter, not cruel, just final. And that finality is what hits an avoidant's nervous system like a shock, because avoidants are used to relationships staying emotionally available even when they're not behaving well. They're used to being able to return. They're used to being forgiven quickly. They're used to a soft landing. They're used to you doing the emotional labor of keeping the connection alive, even when they are the one withdrawing. Calm closure removes the soft landing. Now here is what makes it so powerful. You don't just say no, you mean no. You don't just set a boundary, you keep it. You don't just reject the old dynamic in words, you reject it in actions. That means when they send a casual hey, you don't respond like it's a reunion. When they hover, you don't reward it with attention. When they test, you don't play. When they send crumbs, you don't turn crumbs into hope. You become emotionally consistent. Your no becomes stable. Your access becomes earned. And for an avoidant, this is a new world, because they relied on your inconsistency to keep their own inconsistency comfortable. This is where regret is born, because regret grows in the space where they cannot soothe themselves with your availability. If you leave the door cracked, they will keep peeking in. If you keep replying, they can keep telling themselves they haven't really lost you. If you keep watching their stories, liking posts, sending little signals, they can keep you as an option in their mind. But when you close the door calmly and your energy truly withdraws, they feel the reality, not the fantasy. Reality says, I can't just come and go anymore. Reality says, that person is not waiting. Reality says, my old strategy doesn't work. And when their old strategy doesn't work, their mind has to confront what it cost them. That's why calm closure is more haunting than anger. Anger gives them a reason. Anger gives them a narrative. Anger lets them tell themselves it ended because they were difficult. Calm closure gives them no escape. Calm closure says, it ended because you didn't show up. It puts the responsibility back where it belongs. And that responsibility is uncomfortable because it brings up shame. Shame is the emotion avoidants hate the most. Shame is the feeling of, I wasn't good enough. I failed. I hurt someone. I lost something valuable because I didn't have the capacity to hold it. And when you end things calmly and keep moving, you create the perfect environment for that truth to land, because there is no more distraction. But here's the part most people mess up. They try to create regret as a strategy. They want the avoidant to suffer. They want them to feel pain. They want the apology. They want the confession. They want the message that finally validates everything. And that desire keeps you hooked. It keeps your nervous system attached to their emotional response. It keeps your healing dependent on their regret. That is not closure. That is bargaining with the past. The real ending, the one that changes your life, is when you stop needing their regret to prove your value. Because your value was never up for debate. Their inability to love consistently was never a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their coping. So the most powerful ending is when you stop making their emotions the scoreboard. You stop watching to see if they miss you. You stop waiting to see if they come back better. You stop needing them to realize anything for you to move forward. And that's why this keynote keeps viewers to the end, because it gives them the final permission. The permission to stop keeping the door open. For someone who keeps treating love like a revolving door, keeping the door open feels kind, but most of the time it's fear. It's fear of finality. It's fear of being alone. It's fear that if you close it, you'll never get the apology. But closing it is not cruelty. It's clarity. It's you choosing peace over possibility. When you truly close the door, two things can happen. If they are capable of growth, they will have to approach you differently. They won't hover, they won't test, they won't send crumbs. They'll come with accountability and a plan, because that's the only thing that can reach you now. And if they are not capable of growth, they will fade because the old access is gone. Either way, you win, because your life is no longer built around their inconsistency, so the ending that makes them regret it isn't you making them regret it. It's you becoming the kind of person who can't be destabilized. It's you becoming unreachable to the old pattern. It's you choosing calm closure and then actually living it. Because when you do that, you stop being a chapter they can reopen whenever they feel lonely, and you become the lesson they can't forget. Not because you begged to be remembered, but because you walked away with dignity and never returned to the same pain twice.